What if I told you that the largest military invasion in the history of warfare was carried out by Nazi Germany against the Soviet Union during World War II? This audacious endeavor, known as Operation Barbarossa, was a bold and calculated move by one of history's most infamous leaders, Adolf Hitler. In the early hours of June 22, 1941, over 3 million German soldiers, supported by thousands of tanks and aircraft, crossed the Soviet border. This was not just an invasion, it was the beginning of a brutal and unrelenting war of attrition that would last for 4 long years. The objective was clear: to conquer the Soviet Union and secure its vast reserves of resources for the Third Reich. But why the Soviet Union? To understand that, we need to delve into Hitler's twisted ideology. For him, the Soviet Union represented a vast land inhabited by what he considered an inferior race, a land that was ripe for the taking by his so-called master race. Moreover, he viewed communism as a mortal threat to his fascist ideology. By vanquishing the Soviet Union, Hitler believed he could kill 2 birds with 1 stone, secure resources for his war machine and destroy a political ideology he detested. Yet while the plan was bold, it was also fraught with risk. The Soviet Union was a formidable adversary, with vast territories, harsh climates, and a resilient population ready to defend their homeland. Hitler's generals, well aware of the failed invasions of Russia by Napoleon and Charles XIV of Sweden, warned him about the potential pitfalls. But Hitler, blinded by his hubris and racial theories, ignored them. Operation Barbarossa was more than just a military campaign. It was a clash of ideologies, a test of wills, and a brutal demonstration of the lengths to which nations will go in their pursuit of power and dominance. By embarking on this audacious endeavor, Hitler set the stage for a cataclysmic conflict that would not only reshape the map of Europe, but also redefine the nature of warfare itself. The stage was set for a battle that would come to determine the outcome of World War II. At the heart of Operation Barbarossa was Hitler's grand plan. A plan fueled by a potent mixture of ambition, ideology, and underestimation. Adolf Hitler, the man behind the Third Reich, had a vision for Germany, one that was grand in scale and devastating in its implications. Central to this vision was the concept of Lebensraum, or living space. Hitler believed that for Germany to thrive and become the dominant power in Europe, it needed more room. And he looked east, towards the vast expanses of the Soviet Union, as the perfect place for this expansion. This was no mere land grab. The idea of Lebensraum was deeply rooted in Hitler's worldview, a dangerous ideology that saw the world in terms of racial struggle, where the superior race, in his view the Aryans, had the right, even the duty, to subjugate or even eliminate inferior races. But Hitler's grand plan wasn't just about space, it was also about ideology. Hitler was a virulent anti-communist. He saw communism as a Jewish conspiracy, a direct threat to his vision of a racially pure Aryan state. By invading the Soviet Union, he hoped to destroy communism at its source, to eradicate what he saw as a malignant tumor on the body of Europe. Yet for all his grand ambitions, Hitler greatly underestimated the Soviet Union's military capabilities. Despite warnings from his generals, Hitler believed the Soviet Union was a colossus of clay, ready to collapse at the first strong blow. He thought the Red Army was weak and poorly led, a mistake that would have far-reaching consequences. And so, with a grand vision of a new German empire in the East, a fervent desire to destroy communism, and a dismissive view of the Soviet Union's military strength, Hitler set his plan into motion. Operation Barbarossa, the largest military operation in human history, was about to begin. Hitler's grand plan was about to be put to the test. On June 22, 1941, the German war machine was unleashed. It was a moment that would change the course of history, marking the beginning of Operation Barbarossa, Hitler's ambitious plan to invade the Soviet Union. As dawn broke, 3 million German troops, spread across a front over 1,000 miles wide, surged forward into Soviet territory. The sheer scale of this operation was unprecedented, and the initial stages of the invasion were a testament to the power and efficiency of Germany's military might. The Soviet Union, caught in a state of unpreparedness, was taken by surprise. This was largely due to the non-aggression pact signed between the two nations just 2 years prior, in 1939. The pact had created a false sense of security, leaving the Soviets ill-prepared for the onslaught that was to come. In the early days of the operation, the German forces advanced rapidly, employing blitzkrieg tactics that had proven devastatingly effective in earlier campaigns. Key battles unfolded, such as the Battle of Bialystok-Minsk, which saw the encirclement and defeat of substantial Soviet forces. Over the course of the battle, the German forces captured the cities of Bialystok and Minsk, dealing a significant blow to the Soviets. The rapid advance of the German forces and the scale of the Soviet losses were shocking, and marked a surprising success for Hitler's audacious plan. Yet even in these early days there were signs that Operation Barbarossa would not be a straightforward campaign. The vast distances and logistical challenges presented by the Russian landscape, along with the resilience of the Soviet forces, hinted at the difficulties that lay ahead. The initial success of Operation Barbarossa was a demonstration of the formidable power of the German war machine, but it was also a stark reminder of the devastating impact of war, leaving in its wake a trail of destruction and setting the stage for a long and grueling conflict. The initial success, however, was only the beginning of a long and grueling conflict. The Soviet Union, caught off guard, began to mount a resistance. The initial onslaught of Operation Barbarossa sent shockwaves through the Soviet ranks. Yet, amid the chaos, a steadfast resolve began to take shape. The Soviet forces, while unprepared for the scale of the attack, were far from defeated. Resilience became the watchword of the Soviet army. Men and women, soldiers and civilians alike, rallied to the defense of their motherland. They fought with courage and determination, often against overwhelming odds. Their tenacity was a testament to the human spirit, a beacon of hope amid the darkness of war. In the face of the relentless German advance, the Soviet leadership adopted a strategy known as scorched earth. This policy mandated the destruction of any resources that could potentially aid the enemy. Factories were dismantled, crops were burned, and entire towns were evacuated or razed to the ground. The aim was to leave nothing but a barren wasteland for the German invaders, denying them the sustenance they needed to sustain their war machine. But perhaps the most formidable ally of the Soviet Union was Mother Nature herself. The harsh Russian winter set in, turning the landscape into a frozen tundra. The German forces, accustomed to the milder climate of Western Europe, found themselves ill-equipped to deal with the brutal cold. Their tanks froze, their weapons jammed, and their soldiers succumbed to frostbite and hypothermia. The winter was a ruthless adversary, one that the German High Command had woefully underestimated. The Soviet forces seized this opportunity, launching counterattacks against the beleaguered German troops. The tide of the war began to shift, slowly at first, then with increasing momentum. The resilience of the Soviet forces, their scorched earth strategy, and the merciless Russian winter had all played their part. The invaders were now the ones on the back foot. The resilience of the Soviet forces and the harsh winter had started to turn the tide. The Battle of Moscow marked a significant turning point in Operation Barbarossa. As the chill of winter set in, so too did the stark reality of the German campaign situation. Moscow, the heart of the Soviet Union, was a prize that had long been in Adolf Hitler's sight. But the city's defense would prove to be a challenge far greater than the German forces had anticipated. The Soviet Union, under the strategic leadership of General Georgy Zhukov, had prepared a formidable defense for their capital. The Red Army, despite suffering heavy losses in the early stages of the invasion, was not defeated. Instead, they were regrouping, reinforcing, and readying for the fight that lay ahead. With temperatures plummeting well below freezing, the German forces found themselves ill-prepared for the harsh Russian winter. Their tanks froze, their weapons malfunctioned, and their soldiers, dressed for a summer campaign, succumbed to frostbite and hypothermia. Meanwhile, the Soviet forces, accustomed to the severe weather and dressed in white winter camouflage, launched a counter-offensive. This move caught the German forces off guard. The strength and resilience of the Red Army, combined with the brutal winter conditions, began to tip the scales in favor of the Soviets. The Battle of Moscow was a grueling fight that lasted from October 1941 until January 1942. But when the smoke cleared, the German forces had failed to take the city. The Red Army had not only defended their capital, but had also dealt the German war machine its first major defeat. In the wake of this battle, the momentum of Operation Barbarossa shifted dramatically. The invincible aura of the German forces had been shattered. The Soviet Union had demonstrated that they could not only withstand the German onslaught but could also deliver a powerful counterblow. The German advance had been halted, marking a significant turning point in World War II. The turn of events in Moscow would echo through the following years of the war, setting the stage for further Soviet victories and the eventual downfall of the Third Reich. Operation Barbarossa had far-reaching consequences, both for the parties involved and for the rest of the world. The aftermath of this audacious military campaign was felt on a scale that's hard to comprehend. The human cost was staggering. Millions of lives were lost, both military and civilian, an unfathomable toll that forever changed the demographics of Eastern Europe. The Eastern Front, where the brunt of Operation Barbarossa took place, was left in ruins. Cities were razed, infrastructure was obliterated, and countless lives were uprooted. The Soviet Union, despite its resilience, was left scarred, its people bearing the brunt of the devastation. But let's not forget that Operation Barbarossa also altered the course of World War II. It stretched the German military to its limits, overextended and vulnerable. The failure of the operation marked a turning point in the war. The mighty German war machine, which had seemed invincible, was halted and then pushed back by the Soviet forces. The repercussions were not confined to the battlefield. The invasion had a profound impact on the political landscape. It marked the beginning of a deep and enduring enmity between Germany and the Soviet Union, a rift that would cast a long shadow over global politics for decades to come. The Soviet Union, strengthened by its ability to withstand the German onslaught, emerged as a global superpower. Its victory over Germany boosted its standing on the international stage, setting the stage for the Cold War and the subsequent geopolitical alignments. The consequences of Operation Barbarossa were far-reaching indeed. It was a stark reminder of the catastrophic consequences of military aggression, and it underscored the resilience of nations and peoples in the face of adversity. The echoes of Operation Barbarossa can still be heard today, a chilling testament to the indelible mark it left on our world. It's a chapter of history that continues to inform our understanding of war, power, and human resilience. Operation Barbarossa was not just a military campaign, but a turning point in human history. Operation Barbarossa remains one of the most audacious and significant military campaigns in history. This colossal undertaking, marked by its sheer scale and brutal intensity, has left an indelible mark on the annals of World War II. Yet, as we reflect on this momentous event, it's not just the military maneuvers or the key battles that resonate. It's the human stories, the resilience, and the profound consequences that truly stand out. The audacity of Hitler's plan, the unyielding resistance of the Soviet forces, the turning point on the Eastern Front, these are all pivotal pieces of a larger narrative. But they also serve as stark reminders of the human cost of conflict. Millions of lives were lost, countless others irrevocably changed. The landscape of the Soviet Union was forever altered, its people bearing the brunt of the devastating impact. Yet, amidst the wreckage and ruin, resilience emerged. The Soviet forces, initially caught off guard, rallied and mounted a resistance that ultimately turned the tide of the war. The strength and determination displayed by these forces and by the civilian population is a testament to the human spirit's ability to endure and overcome adversity. As we delve deeper into the strategies employed, the motivations behind this campaign, and the impact on civilian populations, we see a complex tapestry of events and decisions that shaped the course of history. Operation Barbarossa is a stark reminder of the far-reaching consequences of war, the depths to which humanity can sink, and the heights it can reach when faced with adversity. In reflecting on Operation Barbarossa, we gain a deeper understanding of the forces that shaped the world during this tumultuous period. We see the interplay of military strategy, political ambition, and human resilience. And we are reminded of the importance of learning from history, of understanding the past to better navigate the future. Remembering Operation Barbarossa is not just about recalling a military campaign, it's about understanding the profound impact it had on the world.